So let's, why don't we go ahead and take some calls then?
Sure. I've got, is it John in Princeton?
Yeah, hi.
How you doing, John?
Hi.
I'm getting some feedback. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
I'm not either. Try,
Are you guys getting the feedback?
have you turned, no, we're doing okay in here, actually. If you turn down the stream and everything else, try and make the most of it.
I'm actually not watching live, so.
Okay, well, try and get your question out, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, well, I've been a big fan of the show. It's actually been responsible for my own, partly responsible for my own deconversion from Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing on the show kind of stood out to me over the years, and it was, it seems like whenever somebody calls in regarding solipsism, whoever is the host seems to be really dismissive, not even seeming to actually address what they're claiming.
Sure.
And like a specific example would be like there was a caller somewhat recently who was making some argument, and he mentioned that he was a solipsist.
Yep. And Jeff and I at the
so he
same.
hung up and said, "Well, why even bother calling if we're just figments of your imagination?"
Sure.
Well, I was just saying that I think it's irresponsible to misrepresent solipsism, because what you do is you create a straw man that's similar to the straw man that people create for atheism.
Well, see, the thing is, solipsism takes a number of different forms. And one might divide it up into categories of implicit versus explicit solipsism. But in a simple sense, it starts off with the idea that we can't be certain that anything other than our own mind exists. Correct?
Right.
Who gives a damn? That's my position. As I just mentioned a minute ago, I don't care the slightest bit whether or not we can be absolutely certain. Solipsism may in fact turn out to be true. I may be a brain in a vat. I don't find these various hypothetical scenarios that kind of talk about solipsism to be useful or meaningful at all, because the solipsist could be right. I might be the only mind that actually exists. However, until there's actually evidence to support this, I'm stuck actually acting in the reality that I perceive and operating according to its rules. Solipsism offers nothing that is practically useful, and it is just a pure speculation that is derived from a faulty appeal to absolute certainty. That because we can't be absolutely certain about something, therefore X.
Well, I mostly agree with you. I'm personally not a solipsist. I have my own reasons for rejecting the position.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that if we are in some kind of alternate reality, then the best way of interacting is still within our reality anyway. So it's true that.
Well, you said
it doesn't really matter ultimately.
You said if we are, and if solipsism is correct, it's not an if we are, it's if you are. If solipsism is correct, it's not if we are in an alternate reality, it's if you are in an alternate reality. I am a figment of your imagination. If in fact,
it's not necessarily that way. I mean, some solipsists do believe that their imagination is the only thing that exists.
No, what I'm saying is that the solipsistic position begins with we cannot be certain of any other mind than our own.
Right.
And I'm saying that if that position is correct, if what they draw from that is correct, then it would naturally follow that I am a figment of your imagination and vice versa.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that everybody who says they're a solipsist is asserting a position that they are in fact the only mind. I'm saying that solipsism begins with this, we can't be absolutely certain, or I can't be absolutely certain that there are any other minds than my own. I don't see that there's evidence for this proposition. It is a purely hypothetical speculation that offers no practical benefit. And so whether it's true or not until it's actually demonstrated to be true, it is entirely useless. And so I find the people who and in the case, the specific call that you're talking about where Jeff and I both said, oh, you're a solipsist, and hung up, I was actually taking his claim of being a solipsist and putting it in the context of the larger arguments that he was making. So I don't think I was unfairly representing that. But I'll fairly represent solipsism anytime somebody wants to. It's a philosophical position that we cannot be absolutely certain that there's any other mind than our own. And that's all you have to say, because you can derive or not derive what you want from it. It serves no practical use, and I don't see that it's relevant to any conversations that we have, which is why I don't spend any time on it.
Well, you say that it's a philosophical position. Don't you kind of see it more as a rejection of a belief in the same vein that atheism might be?
No, it is an acknowledging something that is true, the inability to be absolutely certain of something, and it is developing, drawing from that a conclusion that therefore I cannot be absolutely certain about things. I can though, I think therefore I am, Descartes, I can be certain that I exist in some form, that my mind exists in some form. I cannot be certain that other minds exist because they could be figments of my imagination. It is a philosophical position.
But it's the rejection of the belief that other minds exist.
No, because that would be an assertion, and that would be specifically why I would make fun of people, because then they would be asserting that in fact they are the only mind, and that is a position that they would have to actually present evidence for. That's what hasn't been done.
But they don't, what I'm saying is they don't claim they're the only mind. They claim that they reject, at least in the position itself, it's rejection of the belief in other minds. If nobody's saying anything about whether there are other minds,
they don't believe in other minds. See,
right, so it's a disbelief.
Sure. They are rejecting a proposition that other minds exist. You could phrase it that way, but you'd be wrong. Because that is asserting that is the assertion of a position. I'm rejecting that other minds I'm rejecting the claim that other minds exist. That's not how solipsism is derived. I mean, you could do it that way. You could say, okay, you claim there are other minds, I reject that. Well, all right, all you're doing in that case is demonstrating that you are, as I pointed out at the beginning, uncertain as to whether or not other minds exist.
Well, we can look at default positions here. Is the default position to assume that other minds do exist, or to not assume that other minds exist?
Well, I would actually say that you've kind of jumped the gun, because I think one of the ways that we can go about determining what the default position is by observation. Now, I would say that by and large, the practical necessity and the evidence at hand demonstrates that it is most probable that there are in fact other minds. But now we're debating what's actually true, and not what one believes about what's actually true. All right, did you follow that?
So you're saying, I mean, I agree with you with regards to the philosophical practicability matter.
Sure.
I'm just saying that to say that it's a statement of positive, it's a positive statement is kind of construing it in the way that people might say, well, atheists, believe in no God. Even if they admit that it's not an absolute position, it's still not a positive position.
Okay, there are two ways to phrase the solipsism, the way you're talking about. One is an assertion that I am the only mind. And the other one is a rejection of the proposition that there are other minds.
Okay.
Okay? If I assert that I am the only mind, I have a burden of proof. If I reject the proposition that there are other minds, I may or may not have a burden of proof, depending on, well, first of all, if I'm trying to convince anybody, I always have a burden of proof. But as far as where the default burden of proof lies, is it on do other minds exist, or does the default begin with only a mind exists? I think that's the wrong place to start the discussion of this, because until somebody first proposed the idea that we can't be certain that there are any other minds, the default certainly was that there were other minds. I mean, the practical default, the one that people actually used, correct?
Right. I mean, in the discussion,
the whole thing centers around...
You can say it's between two minds in order to be a discussion.
The whole thing centers around the idea that everything I experience could be an illusion. and not real. The rejection of the claim that there are other minds is a rejection of obvious evidence to the contrary. And it is an assertion that everything I experience is not actually real, that it's all an illusion.
Well, I mean, whether it's real or not, I mean, the idea isn't that it's an illusion in the sense that there necessarily is something ultimate there. I mean, people with, say, a relativist view of the world might say that there is a reality, but it's, you know, relative in that sense.
I don't know. We're losing everybody else, I'm sure, John.
I'm sorry?
At this point, I'm sure that we've lost everybody who was actually watching the show.
Well, okay. I mean, I just wanted to point out, I mean, that sometimes I just think sometimes the show doesn't really kind of assumes certain things about solipsism that may not be original to it.
I haven't assumed anything about solipsism. I didn't get my definitions wrong today when I was talking about it, did I?
Okay.
What you're talking about is when I offer my opinion about solipsism. And I think that people who waste a lot of, there's a key word, waste a lot of time focusing on solipsism, a completely impractical and useless philosophical position, are people that I don't want to waste any time on.
Well, you can critique it for being useless, but that's not usually what's said.
What do you mean that's not usually what?
I mean, what has been said in the past, as far as I've seen, isn't that solipsism is useless. It's usually that it doesn't provide evidence. That's what I have a problem with.
Okay, it doesn't. That's why it's useless. The solipsistic positions are useless because they cannot support the position that they're taking. The only way they can do it is to do what you're trying to do on their behalf, which is say that you have to prove to me that other minds exist, and until you do, I'm not going to change my position. Well, okay, now you're just pig-headed. I'm not saying you, John. I'm saying that individual that's holding that position until such time as they've changed. Yeah, you're going to have a burden of proof as long as you're having a conversation where you're trying to convince somebody's mind. But all the rest of us are dealing about things beginning after the issue of solipsism. There is some reality that I experience, and I'm fine with presuming as the default position that the reality I experience is actually reality. For one thing, it would mean that if I wasn't, the implications of this are that I have invented or been fed everything. Actually, if I'm the only mind, I have invented all of this. If I'm the only mind that exists, I've invented all of this, which means I've come up with every beautiful song that's ever inspired me. I've come up with every hateful comment and thought that anybody has ever expressed. When I talk about it being practically useless, I'm talking about I experience some reality, and that becomes the default position. Until such time, it's like the Matrix. You may be in the Matrix, but until such time as somebody can demonstrate you're in the Matrix, you are justified in believing that you're in reality. That is the default position. Reality doesn't have a burden of proof to prove that it's actually real and not real. It's people who would reject that reality. And by the way, they're rejecting it for this nonsensical notion of absolute certainty. But we've already done like 15 minutes on solipsism, and I think we got to move on at this point.
Okay.
But thanks, John.
All right. Thanks. Nice talking to you.